More American deaths today in Afghanistan, and the rising death toll numbers will bring more question about the mission in a very unsteady region. Tonight, we have special coverage of that region many believe is at the brink, with Americans there in harm's way. We have 3 reports this evening from Ann Curry, Richard Engel, and Lester Holt. We'll begin with Lester in Kabul in Afghanistan. Lester, good evening.
Brian, good evening to you. 3 Americans, nearly a dozen others killed in a suicide bomb attack in the eastern province of Khost. For some time now, military officials have been saying the Taliban have been weakened and are avoiding direct conflict. Still, they are finding new and effective ways to strike. The 3 U.S. military police officers were on foot patrol in a market with Afghan police when the suicide bomber struck. 4 Afghan officers and 6 civilians were also killed and dozens hurt. Joint U.S.-Afghan operations are becoming more common, and so are the risks. On Saturday, an American soldier and a U.S. civilian contractor were killed by an Afghan soldier, the latest in a growing series of insider attacks. Despite mounting worries, Afghan commandos firing live rounds still train side by side with elite American special forces.
The exit strategy is right here in front of you.
You can't stop working with these guys.
Absolutely not.
At this level, joint combat operations are now the rule. Americans no longer go it alone.
I'm very impressed with your training here today.
General Tony Thomas heads all special operations forces in Afghanistan. His men rely on their Afghan partners, a relationship the Taliban hopes to undermine. We lost another soldier to a green-on-blue attack. What are we going to do about it?
It's intolerable. It's a little bit of a quandary, but partnering means staying close.
Washington has accepted that the U.S. can't shoot its way out of this war. And so while right now there are special operations troops engaging insurgents in these mountains along the Pakistan border, others are in small towns like this, engaged in the mundane task of nurturing local governments. Afghan National Police now man this lookout over a small southern village, while their U.S. Green Beret advisors work with local leaders on civic improvement.
Once the Afghans can take care of themselves and they're self-sustainable, then they're telling the insurgents, we don't want you here, we don't need you here.
The plan is to train Afghans to secure themselves by 2014. But U.S. commanders want assurances that until then, Afghans will guard their backs.
It's their leadership that has to come to play here to reduce the threat to us.
Over the last 8 days, I've seen a lot of interaction between U.S. and Afghan troops, some of it relaxed, but Brian, at all times, there's 1 or 2 fully battle-dressed American soldiers with their fingers near the trigger, just in case.
Lester Holt starting off our coverage in Kabul tonight. Lester, thanks. And now to our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel, also in Kabul, on what's been accomplished and what hasn't in over a decade now in that country. Richard, good evening.
Good evening, Brian. This is a country where a group of lightly armed insurgents defeated the Soviet Union. It seems we haven't won here either. We haven't lost exactly. Mostly we're leaving this country because we're tired of writing blank war checks, and the Taliban haven't been defeated.
This woman is about to die, executed for adultery. The man she was with got off scot-free. The Taliban recently filmed this video of their justice as a warning and to say they're making a comeback. Some 30 miles away, in the village of Shakardara, we saw few signs of what the U.S. would consider progress in Afghanistan, and no evidence that the American plan to hand over to a credible, stable Afghan government will work. These village elders tell me once U.S. troops leave, a civil war will begin, and U.S.-trained Afghan forces will not be able to stop it.
Are you preparing for this fight? Are you already stockpiling weapons and ammunition and getting yourself ready?
Yes, we are. We will definitely fight, he says. And what about the Afghan government? It's meaningless here, they say.
You think it's possible that the Taliban will try and come back?
Yes, they will, he says. It makes a decade's worth of American battles seem futile. It wasn't always like this.
The United States military has begun strikes.
At first, 1, 2, 3. The war had momentum and a clear purpose. Al-Qaeda, with bases in Afghanistan, attacked the United States on 9/11. Just 3 months later, the U.S. drove the Taliban from power. Al-Qaeda and Osama bin Laden were on the run. It was done with a few hundred CIA officers, special forces, and air power. A quick victory, but not decisive. And then came the distraction of a new war in Iraq. The Taliban regrouped, and the U.S. began a nation-building project that has been far less successful. The government Washington helped put in place is widely considered corrupt. President Karzai is supposed to be out by 2015, but Afghans don't believe it. The war has brought some benefits to Afghans. 3 million girls now go to school. That was banned under the Taliban. Better health care and new clinics have boosted life expectancy by as much as 22 years. But those gains could be temporary if the villagers in Shakardara are right and the Afghan government can't hold the country together. The Taliban will fight their way back, undefeated by a superpower.
And the cost of all of this, Brian, about $600 billion, and the meter is still running.